Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus, here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is the end of the week, Friday, the 12th of January 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news today. So to start off with, Nigel Farage is back in the headlines. The former UKIP leader has said he would consider at least calling for a second referendum on Brexit. Now, this has been splashed across loads of papers, the Mirror and the Guardian particularly going strong on it on their front pages. It's important to understand the slight caveat in what he was saying. He effectively said on The Right Stuff yesterday on Channel 5 programme, he was warming to the idea that possibly sometime in the future he could support a second referendum. By no means was it an endorsement for a second referendum, but more a very heavily nuanced sentiment towards a movement potentially towards a second referendum. Very different to perhaps what you might have heard on the news lines or reports coming through over the past few hours. He later clarified, of course, and has clarified that it would be the last thing he wanted to do, a second referendum. It's also important to realise what the motive was, because some, as The Guardian has quite rightly admitted, some of the Remain campaigners have jumped on it as an example of the movement towards a pro-EU stance, pro-Remain stance in Britain. Nigel Farage basically said this. He wanted a second referendum in order to destroy the Remain campaign and the Remain argument for a generation. Fundamentally, a second referendum would be a pro-Brexit decision, not an pro-EU decision. And so it's important to understand that nuance as well, what he was saying. The reaction, of course, got agreement from co-founder of Leave.eu, Aaron Banks. He's saying it would avoid sleepwalking into a false Brexit. Interestingly, though, UKIP have completely dismissed the suggestion by their former leader. Obviously, there's always the case that Nigel Farage could come back as leader of the party for a fourth time. However, obviously here, completely slight different stance between party and person. And Downing Street have, of course, said we will not be having a second referendum. Couldn't be clearer. Next up, President Trump has cancelled his visit to the UK. Now, this was due to happen next month in February. The reason for it was to open the new US Embassy, which is in Vauxhall. It's a $1 billion building, very, very impressive cube glass shape. He was due to come and open it. He has now cancelled. It's not going to happen. Why? Now, he's tweeted this morning, in fact, only a few hours ago, that the reason is he's not a big fan of the new building in Vauxhall. Elaborating a little bit on Twitter, he said, moving from Mayfair, the old location, was a bad deal. It was sold off by Obama for peanuts, and the new building is nowhere near as impressive, and the location is nowhere near as impressive either. And so in not supporting it, he is not coming to Britain. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, will be coming instead in a few weeks' time. However, it's important to understand protests might have also been a part of his calculation. He has said, or reported to have said, that he would not be coming if he knew that there were protests for his visit on the streets of London while he was here. And also politically, it's been difficult for the UK as well. The UK's relationship with Donald Trump has cooled, certainly in recent times, particularly over his comments on Twitter to do with terrorism in the UK. One more story then, Banks crackdown on illegal immigrants. So now this is something which has come through in the Telegraph in particular. Government will give banks a secret list of migrants, illegal migrants they suspect are living in the UK. The hope then is that these banks will close the accounts of these people on the list who are illegally living here, and therefore will force them to come forward, but also force them to leave, and so to reduce the amount of illegal immigration into the UK. The policy is being fronted by the new immigration minister here, Caroline Noakes. The Home Office is expecting, or at least anticipating, for this to catch more than 6,000 illegal immigrants in the first year, and checking around 70 million bank accounts as well. Very interesting story. But obviously part of the Conservative and indeed Theresa May's personal strength, or rather perceived, what they want to perceive as strength on immigration, and trying to bring it down somehow to the tens of thousands from the hundreds of thousands where it currently is. That's pretty much it for today, and indeed the week. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic weekend.